I'm going to talk to you about Diverse City in a second. It's a football club in Dublin. I'm presenting, though, on behalf of myself and some colleagues from the University of Limerick and also from Surrey, the Department of Sociology in Surrey as well, for some work we did with Sports Against Racism Ireland. And we did this as pro bono work because we are, well, the vast majority of us were interested, or football fans at least. The findings I'm going to share with you are based on research we undertook with a young women's football team in Dublin. It's part of a broader project which I'll touch on in a second. But they are predominantly Muslim women and women from various diverse backgrounds. So Irish, Arabic, Asian, South Asian, so forth. So a really good diverse range of participants. I suppose at the outset what I want to underscore is that Diverse City as a team is very inclusive. It has an open, inclusive ethos. So even the team itself, it was set up as a specific purpose team initially, has broadened to be more inclusive. And that's informed by the experiences of the people who were involved in Diverse City and the types of exclusion that they felt and they experienced socially. So some context for you. The Diverse City sits within a broader project, and the project is referred to or called the Hijabs and Hat Tricks Project, and it commenced around the spring of 2014, around the time when the prohibition on the wearing of the headscarf and other head coverings in football was removed by FIFA. The project itself was started or initiated by a couple of Muslim guys, both called Abdul, which makes it really confusing, so I'll refer to them as the Abduls as and when. They're people who I've engaged with quite a lot since and have been really good research partners. And some of their family as well, Fadila being one person as well who's been involved. Now, Abdul, A and B, were both involved with Sports Against Racism Ireland in a range of different projects around inclusion through sports, for years leading up to this project. One of them stated to me that the main aim of the project, and I quote, was to set up our own Muslim women's team in our community based on democratic principles and in a human rights framework. The project itself was more than just a football team, though. As you'll see in a few moments, it aimed to create a platform for the socio-political participation of young Muslim women in Ireland, but it's broadened out to go beyond just being for young Muslim women, and I really want to underscore that. The project was funded by Street World Football and Sony as well, and it's gone on to win a few awards. You'll see some images throughout here of some awards that were given to the representatives of the team. But there are two themes I want to discuss now, though, and that is that the perception of Diverse City to be more than a club, if I can use the term, and if I can borrow again from another footballing term, and for football in this context, to be more than just a game. This is some of the team from a couple of years back. Now, there are different age levels involved, but this is just one snapshot from the first team. The initial discussions with the young women that took part in this research from the various teams that are Diverse City revealed that many of them had encountered difficulties playing football or accessing football teams based on their gender, based on their racial identities or ethnic identities, and also based on their religious identities. So you had this whole intersection of exclusion going on the various bases of their different identities. Now, many of the women here espoused the love of the beautiful game. They love football, they want to play football, and some of them had these dreams and aspirations to play football, and still do, to play at the highest levels possible in the Irish context, or further than that if possible at all. Some played football or played sports in schools, Gaelic games, for example. Others played or participated in martial arts. Some played football on the street, but they noted that many of them couldn't find an outlet through which they could play football on a team wherein their own identities were accepted, that they weren't excluded on the basis of their identities. Some of the barriers that people experienced included issues such as having access to facilities that the young Muslim women, for example, felt would be sensitive to their needs and align with their faith, and ideas about modesty that would be aligned with their faith. For Rabia, for example, her desire to play sport whilst remaining sensitive to her religious beliefs was a key concern. She said, like I was 17, 18, obviously I can't play with the boys anymore, so I stopped. Players also shared their experiences of racism during the group discussions. These included negative experiences both off and on the pitch, and as this example by Denise demonstrates, from their own teammates, and oftentimes without their coaches or managers intervening. I played for a team. Now, Denise isn't Muslim. Denise is a black Irish woman living in Dublin. And she said, I played for a team in Dublin. We had a match, and one of the girls kept saying racist stuff to me, like a girl on my own team. I was only new, so I couldn't say anything. I had no friends. They were a formed group. Do you know what I mean? They kept on saying stuff. They kept asking the manager, and she kept on asking the manager, are you going to say anything? It took the referee on one occasion to stop, to intervene on her behalf, because a player of her own team was giving her racist abuse. Now, suffice to say, Denise left that team. And in her discussions with Denise, it was pretty clear that she would not have continued to play football if she didn't have an outlet such as Diverse City, because of her experiences of racism on the pitch. Deepa's experience here is telling, and obviously these are pseudonyms that I'm using. Deepa's experience is telling, and I'm going to let you read the quote yourself in a few seconds, but there's one part that really strikes me. She said, I wanted to join a football team. I had a school team, but I wanted to join a team outside and see what it felt like. That to me, as a young white Irish guy growing up, I've never had to think about my privilege and to be able to see what it feels like to play a team. You know, my 3 kids are white kids, and they can go and play football. I don't have to think about the exclusions they may experience. So to see what it felt like. I wasn't allowed to join a team because I am Muslim, and the team, like the whole team, was Christian, and then I got told that I wasn't allowed to play because I am Muslim. In this context, Diverse City provides and acts as a supportive environment for those who share common experiences of exclusion, whether based on the gender, religious, and or racial identity, alone or at intersection. Diverse City is perceived by those who are involved to be much more than a club. As one participant put it, Diverse City is like a family, a sentiment that was echoed by others. There is a strong sense of solidarity among the players, and this is a key achievement of the Diverse City project. The players draw on support from themselves and sharing their experiences of exclusion, and they also draw on support from Sports Against Racism Ireland and their coaches. Playing football, while at the heart of the activities associated with the Hijabs and Hat-Tricks project, the broader project that this is part of, is but one part of a broader suite of activities. Furthermore, the character of Diverse City has also encouraged greater cultural interaction and understanding amongst the different players from different backgrounds within the team. They're provided different ways, or a kind of a neutral platform to interact in the sporting context. Drawing on the support of Sports Against Racism Ireland and its relationship with other civil society activists and actors, team members have been offered opportunities to develop networking skills and other skills that will benefit them into the future. An important sub-theme, though, that came through in this was the development of this feeling of confidence amongst the players, and it developed in two ways. First, it was in relation to sports and sporting ability, just by participating in sports and this kind of self-esteem and feelings of self-esteem that came with that. Off the field, players referred to the manner in which it gave them confidence in being themselves in terms of their identity. Now, Bradbury, writing in the context of the UK, notes that teams that are based on the sort of ethos that Diverse City are coming from provide a positive space, a positive supporting, a space for positive sporting and societal representations of particular group identities to come to the fore. And it resonates here. Not all of the players who play with Diverse City, the Muslim players, not all of them wear the hijab, for example, but some of them do and want to wear the hijab as well. They've encountered barriers before. Now, Amal's example here of feeling more pride in her religious identity is one point. But others discussed how they would challenge, for example, restrictions in the school context, the education context, around wearing the hijab in the school. In the Irish context, the government policy is to not have a policy, so it's down to individual principles to whether or not a girl can, or a young woman can or cannot wear the hijab in the school context. Sometimes you have principles changing and the whole ethos of the school in relation to that changing as well with them. This is the Beyond Sport Awards, and this is Abdul downside, one of the Abduls. On the right-hand side as you look at it, and that's Fadila. She was one of the leaders in the project as well. So the players reveal that they face a number of barriers, as I've mentioned, when it comes to playing sport without the community. They've also experienced barriers within the communities. And this is something that's come up in the literature as well from different groups. Widening access through sport, for example, in Leicestershire, engaged with the sort of barriers that some people have experienced. Discussions with diverse city players presented evidence of such sensitivities in the Dublin context also. According to some of the discussion group members, they had lost 5 or 6 players, not only due to practical issues such as study commitments and so forth, but also due to some of the sensitivities that cultural sensitivities that some members had experienced within the group. The players themselves felt that the main barriers to female participation were based on a mix of stereotypical, cultural, generational perceptions on the role of the woman in sport. According to Samaya, even if parents are comfortable with, football is good, what's the community going to think of it? I think that's an issue because I have spoken to people, I haven't spoken to people, but you hear small things. This girl wants to join but isn't going to join because, her mum or parents are worried about whatever is going to be said about the community. So even if the parents want their kids to participate, there can be a broader fear of reputation within the community. Rabia recognises her role as a young woman and how she's drawn on diversity within the community. We're the first generation. We're the first ones growing up here. I don't think we're going to be like that with our kids. Like if my daughter, if she tells me she's going to play football, I'm going to be her trainer. Now, prior to doing the research, I got this, this subtle kind of vibe from some of the people commissioning the research that the fathers were reluctant to the daughters playing sports, especially the Muslim fathers were reluctant to the daughters playing sports. But our research came up with something different. An interesting finding is that from our research is one that challenges the stereotypical understandings that fathers, and particularly Muslim fathers, are reluctant to let their daughters play sports. In this context, it was interesting to hear one of the diverse city players recall how her non-Muslim mother, and if I'm right, an Irish Catholic mother who's married to a Muslim man, was more reluctant to allow her daughter to play football than her Muslim father. Similarly, Amina, whose parents are both Muslim, states how her dad is really supportive. If she didn't go to training, he'd be asking her questions as to why she isn't going to football, why she isn't engaging in training. Similarly, Amal, I come from a background where girls can't play sports or can't go out and, say, kick a ball around. But when my dad heard about how this project was formed, the way the project had started, he was really supportive and he wanted me to play. In terms of religious exclusion, if anyone had espoused, and the cultural and the generational barriers were deemed to be the most important barriers by the young women. In terms of any religious barriers that might have been there, the women met these themselves, such as mimicking, if you will, the work of Mona El Said in Lebanon. They met this on religious terms and they took those down on religious terms themselves. In terms of inclusion, some of the best work of Diverse City centres on the way it challenges stereotypes. It challenges stereotypes on the role of young Muslim women and how they participate in sport. The players know that Diverse City stands out. It knows that it's a vehicle, if you will, for them to demonstrate the role of young Muslim women. It provides a platform for inclusion and challenges stereotypes about Muslim women, but also, as the last slide just demonstrated, and as I'm conveying here in this context, about the role of Muslim men and the way Muslim men encourage, or as fathers as well, are key actors in encouraging their daughters to participate in sports. Now, I want to leave the last word to 2 or 3 quotes from some of the women that were involved that really again brings forth the manner in which Diverse City as a project is a vehicle for inclusion, but also something that can challenge those negative stereotypes that I mentioned. I think the fact that it was on national TV and people were like, whoa, there are Muslims playing football and all that sort of thing, that brings up that Muslim girls aren't oppressed, that they can go out and do stuff. That was from Shireen. Another comment, it's educational because a lot of people will think Muslim girls don't engage in sport because they're not allowed, because they have to be all locked up and things like that. In another comment from Siddiqa, In my college, when I tell people I play football, they're like, oh, which team? So you get to play football and it's okay with yous. We thought yous Muslims don't do that. And then from that, they start asking questions and they learned a lot from it. They think just because we're Muslim girls, we're always locked up or in the house, or because we don't drink every weekend. They think we have no life. Diversity then, as a project, is something that is providing inclusion, but also a way of challenging stereotypes. Thank you.